from here, but like, there's a lot of tackling systems out there. I'm not married to any one tackling system. I grade thousands of tackles a year at all levels, just because I feel like if I can figure out the methods that the play is going to end, or the way it's going to end, I could probably coach the beginning of a play a lot better. So that's really where a lot of that comes from. Player safety is obviously a huge part of it, but selfishly, a lot of it really does come back to your ability to kind of predict the angles that players are going to take to the football. Every one of your tackling systems is going to have the same thing. You're going to have a way to get to the ball. You're going to have a way to get into position. You're going to have a way to make contact. You're going to have a way to get the carrier down. That's not anything unique. It's just the details and how you do that, I think, are kind of one of the things that that kind of separate what we're starting to do there in year two with this. And one of the things that we did with our players was we really looked closely at what is it that we're like, how we're defining tackles. Over the last year, I go back and I revise our system each and every year of what we do at every place that I'm at. But one of the things that we look at is we clearly define for players like what types of tackles that we have. So we're looking at, there's really 4 kinds of tackles that we have. Now there's a lot of actions that happen within these tackles, right? Whether to roll, whether to drive, whether, what the level of contact is, what shoulder, we're married to the near foot, near shoulder. We're married to obviously all those tenements that make it leverage capable, but we're also realistic that those things always don't happen. So there's a lot of things that happen within that too. So our goal is to create as many inline tackles as possible. So when we talk about that, we talk about putting our player in a phone booth. Now, funny part is that most of these kids don't even know what a phone booth is. So we kind of like, we have to kind of explain what we're looking at when we're looking at for actually a phone booth. So with that, we kind of make sure that we're understanding that we're keeping the ball in line, we're keeping it inside of a box, and basically looking to go ahead and make full contact and drive through the ball carrier. We want to have hairline below chin through the strike zone. I'm going to explain this thing when we talk about burst to dent, and we're talking about 2 feet in the ground, which I'll talk about in a second, and we're talking about clamp. When we're talking about the ideal situation, we want that to happen. Then we talk about open field. Our number one coaching point when it comes back to open field tackling is we want to run the ball back to leverage. We want to talk about running the ball back to leverage. So we're going to have a spot where they're going to be able to take a shot. We don't want to be passive in the open field, right? But we want to be smart in the open field at the same time. So our number one point, no matter if that's the 12th and 13th defender being the sideline, or if it's back to an extra defender, as we take our shot, we want to make sure we're coaching the crap out of really running the ball back to leverage. And then again, bursting through the strike zone. Our whole goal is about being able to stop their feet and clamp and finish, which I'll get to how we do that. And then we do a series that I don't have that on here now, but again, you're totally welcome to touch me. We do a lot of stuff with engaged tackling. So, especially in box players, we talk about the ability for them to be locked on a block and not have the ability to press off. Because we have a lot of times where you'll see that players will have a hand or two on a blocker, and as they go ahead and release and shed off of that, if they don't get the free release off of it too, they leave themselves in a vulnerable position where they're going to get pressed out of a gap. So we do actually teach when they're engaged to be able to deliver with one arm and one hip through the tackle. And we teach a lot of vertical punch and then clamping from 1 to 2, and then we're trying to knock back the initial surface, and then we classify as the last chance about keeping air in the lungs, and then be able to play the next play. So every tackle that we have, we start by looking at like what area that fits into, and again, trying to get to our ideal, but coach it to be able to get to. So, and again, this doesn't predicate what we did with our system was, and I'm a firm believer of this, of not wasting words. Like we want to coach in the actions and not the coaching points. So for us, we can correct with actions, but we can correct with coaching points. We want to coach with actions. So the action, popularly, a lot of people talk about tracking the football. We're always talking about pinning the hip. We're always talking about, near foot, near shoulder. We're always talking about closing space and change of direction, keeping the ball carrier on inside shoulder. But we classify everything in that category as leverage. We're constantly preaching our approach to the football as leveraging the football. And leveraging the football is the most important thing that we have to do. So what we do is we want to make sure we're teaching this from the feet to the eyes. Now, one of the things that I kind of get to is about what has to talk to what in your body, right, in order for something to happen. So the biggest thing, like the further distance you are from something, the two furthest parts of your body have to talk to each other, right? And that's your feet and your eyes. So I have to pick up speed and I have to maintain focus. So if you think about it, like if I'm at 10 yards depth, vertically or horizontally, like my eyes have to, I have to keep them in my field of vision, and I have to pick up speed. So the two furthest parts of my body, from basically the top of my head to the bottom of my toes, need to speak to each other simultaneously. And as you get closer, the 2 points that have to speak to each other get closer to each other too, with the sensation. So what we're looking at for coaching points for when we're talking leverage, we're constantly talking the coaching points of the action of leverage is about laser focus. We're focused all the way through the ball carrier. You know, we're maintaining everything that we can, trying to stay on the hip. But in the same start, we're looking at what we look for in a performance indicator of the ability to close space, the angle approach and leverage, ability to come to balance, and the ability to stop their change of direction. So we want to be able to go ahead and see through. Now, I'm sure everybody does a series of 1-man, 2-man leverage drills, vertically, horizontally. You know, one of the things that we did in a period of time I wanted to pull is to really stimulate the eyes and maintain focus. What we do is a distraction leverage drill. So this is one that we do that helps us, because what we're doing is we're trying to predict where the entry point is going to end up being. And what we do is a simple drill. We can line this up in multiple people. Is the front guy the tackler is going to look at the back guy, but the middle guy is going to move independently. So what ends up happening is if the player moves independently, they've got to go ahead and maintain focus on the back end guy. So he's got to see through the front end guy to see the back end guy as he works. And then look, as he works and commits, we're looking to find an entry point to the ball. So we're looking to go ahead and see, without going ahead and trying to go ahead and have the front guy deter us in any one direction. We want to maintain our field of vision through any blocker, any potential thing on the ball, and be able to pace it and then be able to drive on it. For us, this is just a simple leverage drill with something in front of us to deter us, but we still also do a lot of other stuff too. But again, we're telling them to move independently and then find ourselves an open window to work through. Here's just an example of it too. As we're looking over at the right side with number 26 as he bends back through the gap. And again, we teach a lot of this with the burst that happens. So he's working, as he works back over, he sees through it, and he's able to find an open window. Just as he looks again, the key is he finds an open window, and he's able to drive off that and find through it too. So that's one of the big things that we work in there, besides the routine tracking drills. So we don't just void the tracking drills. We introduce all of those different things. But again, at some point in time, we want to have something where it's vision and decision and action, or something that we determine as choice in our drill too, that we're not just locked into one individual thing.